I am sure that not a single person would disagree with me if I said that if the fantasy community is known for anything, it would be how chill we are about opinions that differ from our own, right? Right? Okay, look, I'm not trying to trash talk the place where I hang my hat, but let's face it, all us fantasy fans tend to have strong opinions. Some of us are a bit more chill about it than others. Calling a fantasy series one of the best after only reading 2 books because the fanbase is big and cool is so reductive and small-minded. I won't be subscribing. This makes it seem like you only read what you think will get clicks. That comment was on a 15-minute long video where I described in grueling detail the long list of reasons that after only 2 books, the Stormlight Archive was quickly becoming one of my favourite series ever. But because I made one flippant remark about how passionate the fanbase is, the other 14 minutes and 55 seconds of the video vanished from that person's memory, like Hermione's parents forgetting their filthy mudblood kid. You get my point. I love the fantasy fanbase, I really do, but damn, some people get fired up. So, I figured why not have some fun with it for once. What's shaken? My name's Cam, and welcome back to the Story Nomad Inn. I make videos every single week on fantasy and horror books, so if that's your kind of thing, then pull up a stool and let's just get right to it. Look, it's a bit of a quiet one here today. Everyone went to see Morbius, which is just, even for a tavern in the void between fantasy worlds, is still kind of wild to me. Today we are going to check out and react to some unpopular fantasy reader opinions from the famously uncontroversial website Reddit. I like the orphan with hidden powers concept. That's an interesting one. I've actually made a whole ass video before defending the Chosen One trope. I'll leave a card up here for you. Generally, I'm inclined to agree with this post. The Chosen One trope, or cliche if you like, I think it's pretty tight. I know most people will disagree with that and point out how insanely overused this trope is, and technically they are right. But I do think we forget about just how many different directions and ways this trope can actually branch off into. Most of the time the story is very predictable and familiar. Yeah, I agree. But if the author does a good job in making that orphan's relationship with their special power unique, it can be a lot of fun as well. I'm very tired of the trope of the orphan commoner finds out that their parents were secretly royalty. But if the story is about a kid who is kind of forced to grow up too early and earn their abilities, like if they have to really earn the role of being the chosen one, of being special, then I can dig it. Another thing I really don't like that usually comes with this trope though is when the hero is inherently the best at everything they do, everything they try. They're the best fighter, they're the smartest diplomat, they're the best leader, they're the most academically intelligent. I just think that's a bit boring, but also that's something you don't always see with Chosen One stories, so it is what it is. This one is a pretty big post, so I'm not going to read out the whole thing. However, there is one section I want to point out, one important part, and it says, I also believe that I have an obligation to my fans to finish up my series in a timely manner. So this post is apparently coming from someone who also writes fantasy, and what they are saying, perhaps too politely, is that they think authors of fantasy series do have at least some kind of obligation to release fantasy book sequels within a fair time frame. Cough cough. Now this is the type of opinion that I like discussing. This is a very spicy one, and you already know that I want to hear your opinion on this one. I honestly don't know for sure where I stand. I'm a little bit conflicted. On one hand, I don't think authors owe us the next book just because we say we want it now. Adding to a series, especially an epic fantasy one with so many complex plot lines, and especially one with a huge fan base that expects nothing short of perfection, it would be terrifying. I mean, I don't really blame Rothfuss for feeling more comfortable playing video games than working on the next book. There is so much pressure on these authors to tie off all of these story threads in a way that makes everyone happy. That can be super taxing creatively. Now, obviously I can say that because obviously I personally can relate with these extremely talented multi-millionaires. I'm speculating, obviously, but I mean, it seems pretty obvious that that's what these authors are dealing with. It would be really hard, right? However, on the other hand, I do also think that maybe there should be a certain point where someone pulls up the author and says, hey man, What's going on? I mean, 10 years to write the next book? That's a long time, dude. You know what the top song was 10 years ago? Somebody That I Used to Know by Godier. 10 years ago, Billie Eilish was 10. Now, she has 16 Grammys and an Oscar. My point is simply that I think there has to be some kind of time threshold where the author starts to consider that they really should be putting more effort in for the fan base that they're lucky enough to have. Far be it from me to say how hard these big shot authors actually work, that's just my thoughts. What about you? Anti-heroes and moral ambiguity is overplayed. I'd like to read some more with characters who are just good and do the right thing. Personally, I kind of disagree. I kind of hate completely good or completely bad heroes and villains. I'm much more lenient to completely bad villains because the idea of just an evil that you can't possibly rationalize with or communicate with, an evil that just wants to be evil and destroy everything, is terrifying, so that kind of works. But more so for heroes that are good just for the hell of being good or just because they are inherently perfect. I just think it's so alien to how real humans or sentient life in general tends to be. I will give you this, and I will agree that I am a bit tired of the philosophical circle jerk that some authors do with morally grey characters. You can have a hero with a bit of bad and a villain with a bit of good without making it a big, pretentious, chin-stroking, esoteric snooze fest. But where can stand a good man, if not abreast a challenge against the principles of his forefathers? Blah, blah, blah. Tone it down a bit. I'm just now realizing that the fake quote I just made up, it almost sounds like a real Stormlight Archive quote, even though, ironically, I actually really love that series. My answer is always the same. I do not like Tolkien. Yeah, look, fair enough. I'm not gonna fight you on that. In fact, I think you would be very surprised by just how many Lord of the Rings fans would agree with you. His particular style of writing and his pacing in general hasn't really aged very well. His habit of exhaustedly describing every detail of the world and its lore fails to strike a chord with most people, despite how iconic the actual story itself is. I've done a video on that as well, so I'll leave a card up here and leave it at that. I've said it before and will continue to do so. Dragons. I'm sick and tired of dragons. I kind of agree. Dragons are super imposing and they're cool, yeah. I know, but also in the gargantuan pantheon of fantasy creatures and monsters that we could be reading about, the failsafe always seems to be big lizards with wings. At the very least, make your dragon big. Like stupidly big, almost comically big. Then you'll get no complaints from me. Brandon Sanderson is a good world builder, but a mediocre writer. Well, to be fair, that is an unpopular opinion. I disagree, but to each their own. One of the replies on this one says, he's the Marvel movies of fantasy books. Look, I know I might be a bit of a Brando simp, and I promise I'm definitely not a Marvel fanboy. In all honesty, I'm completely exhausted with the superhero genre as a whole, but I don't get this thing people do where they talk about MCU movies like they're popular only because of the CGI. Some of the movies aren't great, sure, but a lot of them have amazing storytelling, amazing character work, amazing acting, directing, and yes, visual effects. It seems like just because something is based on colourful comics and admittedly corny humour, they get written off as being disqualified from being good, and it seems like that may also go for Brando Sando's books as well, I guess. Yes, he writes cinematically. Yes, the fictional politics aren't as dense as the skulls of the writers for season 7 of The Flash, but I don't think it's fair to say that they're any less legitimate than all of the more explicitly adult stuff. But again, to each their own. Magic systems are shit and take away from the plot. Wow. I can get magic systems not being for everyone, but I'm surprised anyone hates them that much. I really like magic systems, although I think it's very easy for an author to do them poorly. I have no interest in reading about a magic system that is so complicated it needs its own separate PowerPoint presentation just to explain it. If I can get a general idea of how that magic works the first time we read about it, I'm happy. Having rules or physics to how the magic works is just one of those things that helps me really buy into this fantasy world. It helps me believe what's going on, and the more I believe, the more attached I'll be to the characters and the plot. I would have hoped to have done more, but I kind of went on a few rambling rants there. I should probably wrap it up here. If you would like me to do another one of these videos, please do go down to the comments and leave me your spiciest, unpopular fantasy genre opinion. Otherwise, thank you for watching, especially for watching through the whole video. You are my favorite. I make videos every single week on fantasy and horror books, so if that's your kind of thing, hopefully I'll see you in the next one. But until then, catch ya. Oh, hey, yo. Hey man, how was Morbius? What the fuck?